My name is Faith, and I am now 59 years old. The story I'm about to share took place when I was in preparatory school. My parents travelled often due to work commitments and faced challenges leaving me alone. So, they thought it would be a good idea to send me to a Catholic boarding school in the city of Campeche for a few months. During my time at the convent, some of the nuns who taught us were genuinely kind-hearted, but others, especially the Mother Superior, were ones you didn't want to cross. All of us students were wary of her because of her stringent nature and the severe punishments she'd give if we broke any rules. Back then, times were different. Our parents allowed such punishments because they were deeply influenced by their religious beliefs. I had a close-knit group of 4 friends in the convent. Among them, Rachel was the most daring. Sometimes she'd convince us to sneak out of our dormitories at night and drink in the convent's backyard, near an abandoned building. No one ever ventured there, as it was dark and far from the dormitories where the other convent residents slept. In truth, all of us were in the convent out of obligation and weary of the monotony. We relished these nightly adventures. Rachel's older sister would secretly bring beer during visiting days. One of those nights, while we were chatting, laughing and drinking near the abandoned building, Sophia, one of my friends, stopped laughing and stared intently at a window of the building. She asked us, "Girls, can you see her?" We all looked, and in the dim moonlight, were certain we saw a nun staring back at us with wide, intense eyes. But it was her unnaturally broad smile that unnerved us the most. It seemed like a mix of excitement and anger. Our immediate reaction was to flee back to our dormitory, leaving our bottles and everything behind. We were terrified not just because of the eerie sight, but also because we knew we'd face severe punishment if caught, for being out after curfew and for consuming alcohol. We spent the night trying to think of an alibi for our actions. Days went by, and to our surprise, no one confronted us about that night. Taking this as a sign, Rachel convinced us to sneak out again, albeit without alcohol this time. As we sat near the same building, the atmosphere felt dense and chilly. Our unease grew when we heard a noise coming from within the building, resembling a door slam. While I thought it was a bad idea, my friend Erica convinced us to investigate. We hesitantly ventured inside. The old dirty building appeared to be an old nun's dormitory, with crucifixes on walls and old rosaries on tables. We entered a room and noticed foreign symbols written on the walls and crucifixes that looked unfamiliar. As we left the room, we heard footsteps from another room. Expecting it to be Rachel and Sophia, Erica and I peeked down the hallway. But there, enveloped in darkness, stood a nun with the same intense eyes and malevolent smile we'd seen earlier. Paralysed with fear, we eventually mustered the courage to run, alerting our other 2 friends of the danger. On our way back, we ran into Sister Grace, one of the kinder nuns. Noticing our terror, she listened to our tale and then shared a chilling story from about 40 years ago. The building used to be the nuns' dormitory, and there was a nun named Carmen who was reclusive and often wrote in isolation. One fateful night, diabolical laughter and strange languages emanated from her room. When the other nuns managed to enter, they found Carmen dead, hanging, amidst satanic symbols drawn in blood. Since that incident, eerie noises and apparitions had been reported in the building. Many believe it's not just Carmen's spirit, but something more sinister. Following that night, Erica's and my parents promptly took us home after hearing our terrified phone calls. Rachel and Sophia stayed on for a few more months. Today, that boarding school has been demolished and replaced with government offices. Yet, even now, I sometimes feel the gaze of those dark, intense eyes from a corner of my room, accompanied by that haunting smile. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe for more chilling tales. Give this video a like and share with your friends. Help spread the fear.
Amber's dorm room was always the gathering spot for her group of friends. On this particular night, a single candle flickered in the center of the room, painting the walls with ghostly shadows. The 4 of them, Amber, Jake, Mia, and Zoe, were engrossed in an old black-and-white photograph of a sprawling, desolate convent. Amber, with her penchant for the macabre, shared tales she had heard. Legend has it that the convent was abandoned decades ago. The nuns left, all but one, Sister Agnes. Some say she still haunts the place. Zoe, a lover of myths and stories, gasped, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Just think of the tales these stone walls might share if they could speak. Jake, the adventurous one, smirked. Why, just imagine, we could venture there tonight and listen for ourselves. Mia, the voice of reason in the group, raised an eyebrow. You're not suggesting we break in, are you? Amber's eyes twinkled. A harmless adventure wouldn't hurt, right? And thus a plan was set in motion. Moonlight painted the aged bricks of the convent, making the vines and moss glow an eerie silver. The four adventurers approached, torches in hand, and gazed upon the large wooden entrance. Zoe shivered. I have to admit, this place is far creepier than I imagined. Jake smirked. Too late to back out now. Inside, the torchlight revealed remnants of the convent's past. Faded frescoes depicting biblical tales, statues missing heads or limbs, and the distant echo of their footsteps. That echo, however, soon had a companion. Another set of steps resounded through the corridor. A flashlight's beam illuminated their surprised faces. What are you kids doing here? Boomed Sheriff Daniels, known throughout the town as a stern enforcer of the law, but with a secret soft spot for local youngsters. Just exploring, Amber replied, feigning innocence. Daniels eyed them warily. This place is more than an old building. It's a tomb. Many enter, few leave. He gestured with his flashlight. I won't arrest you this time, but you need to leave. Now. The group felt a mix of relief and disappointment as the sheriff personally escorted them to the exit. As they crossed the threshold, Daniels turned, his stern demeanor replaced with genuine concern. There's evil in there, he whispered. Stay away. Promise me. They nodded in agreement, but as soon as Sheriff Daniels's car disappeared down the road, Jake's mischievous grin returned. He's gone. We can't just leave now. We've barely scratched the surface. Zoe hesitated. Do you think it's a good idea to go back? Amber nodded. We'll be careful. And thus, their adventure in the haunted convent truly began. Their exploration resumed. The old chapel was hauntingly beautiful with its stained glass windows still somewhat intact. Zoe found a locket by the altar with the portrait of a young nun, undoubtedly Sister Agnes. Amber suggested they split up to cover more ground. Jake and Mia found their way into a former library, where the brittle pages of scattered books hinted at love, betrayal, and a thirst for revenge. Meanwhile, Amber stumbled upon the dormitory. Rows of beds were laid out, one with an eerily blood-stained habit. A shadow flitted across the wall. Amber's voice quivered. Zoe. Jake. Mia? A whisper, cold and disembodied, replied, They can't help you now. Zoe, lost in the maze-like structure, was drawn to the basement by soft, alluring whispers. There she found an old diary. Flipping through it, she unearthed Agnes's tragic tale of love, betrayal, and heartbreak. The group eventually reconvened in the chapel, each shaken by their discoveries. Their tales were interrupted by loud bangs. The entrance door slammed shut, and the air grew cold. The ghostly figure of Agnes appeared, shadows writhing around her. You shouldn't have come here, she hissed. We mean no harm, Amber pleaded, her voice betraying her fear. We just want to leave. But Agnes wasn't done. One by one, she confronted each of them with their deepest fears. Mia was haunted by visions of her past mistakes. Jake felt the walls close in around him. Amber was tormented by malicious whispers, and Zoe found herself trapped in impenetrable darkness. Hours seemed to pass. Yet, as dawn's first light breached the horizon, the group found themselves together in the courtyard. They didn't need any prompting. As the sun's rays grew stronger, they fled, with Agnes's chilling presence chasing close behind. Just as they crossed the threshold of the convent's grounds, her spirit vanished. Back in the safety of the dorm, the group huddled together, physically and emotionally exhausted. We faced our fears, Amber whispered, and survived. Zoe shook her head. I'm never going back there. Jake sighed. Some stories, no matter how tempting, are best left untold. And so, the legend of Sister Agnes remained, lurking in the shadows of the old convent, waiting for the next curious souls to venture too close.